The rest of the day will be divided into 2 blocks. The first one will consist of 2 presentations focused focused on evaluation, and afterwards, after another break, we will have panel discussion with PIs and representatives of Czech institutions that have their own system developed to support their applicants. So it is my pleasure to welcome here Professor Michal Hocek, who is a member of the ERC expert group for supporting ERC applicants here in the Czech Republic. And he is kind enough to share his knowledge about how proposals are evaluated in ERC. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. So I'll try to I'll try to share some of my experience from working in the ERC panel, and some thoughts on how the proposals are evaluated and how what are the common mistakes and so on. So you have already seen this. So just very briefly, there are 3 main types of ERC grants: the starting, consolidator, and advanced, and they differ mostly in the level of experience of the applicant. So, but in each of them there should be some element of independence. So in the ERC starting grant, basically the criterion is the potential for independence and evidence of maturity. I'll come to that later. In the consolidator grants, which are for applicants between 8 and 12 years after PhD, they should already be fully independent, and there should be proof of or evidence of independence and maturity. And certainly for ERC grant, they are super competitive, and there is no question that those applicants must be mature and independent fully. So just very briefly through the statistics, you have definitely seen that. Like in all 3 categories, the success rate is between 8 to 13%. So to say, it differs year by year. So this is starting grants from 2020, where the success rate was 13%, whereas the last year it was less than 10%, quite surprisingly. And you can see that the number of proposals actually was higher. So this is definitely the reason, because the allocation of money probably was not lower. And but quite surprisingly, in advanced grants of the last year, the success rate was slightly higher. I should have known it. I would have applied because it was much higher than the year before. Sorry. Okay. So, and in the consolidator grants in 2020, it was about 13%. So, regarding, let's say, the success in different countries, you can see that in the starting grants, there are some grants also from the Eastern Europe, although still certainly the developed countries from the Western Europe take major share. There have been slight shift in the recent years, because like 3, 4, 5 years ago, the most successful country was the UK, and now it seems that the number of successful proposals from the UK dropped, at least partially, and now Germany is winning. This is the consolidator grants. You can see there are still some grants for the Eastern Europe, although quite few. And for the advanced grants for 2020, there was not a single one to the Eastern Europe, unfortunately. In the last year, there were very few, but like all of them were either theoretical physics or mathematics. And I think that there is good reason for that, because in those, let's say, non-experimental disciplines, there is no need for like expensive equipment and large teams like in, for instance, chemistry and biology. So to analyze why our country is, let's say, so inefficient in application for advanced grants, it would have been a separate independent lecture, because there are a number of reasons, and we don't have time to cover it now. But I think everybody can come with some clues. So this is also quite an interesting comparison from 2020, where you can see the number of grants that went to each country, and then the nationalities. And there are some interesting trends there. For instance, the case of Italy. You can see that like relatively few grants, 17 grants, if I see it correctly, went to Italy, but from the nationalities, it seems that the Italians are the smartest people in Europe. 47 Italians got the ERC grant, but hardly, or just few of them in Italy. So it seems that, the scientific policy in Italy does not allow the people to stay in the country, and they typically get the grants in the UK, Germany, or other countries. It seems that the Czech Republic is more patriotic. There are 4 grants to Czechs, and they are all here, so at least in this year. Anyway, this is, let's say, the number of grants that are awarded in each panel. So in starting grants, it is about, let's say, on average 15 grants in every 10 to 15 grants in every panel. So it is really few. So it is really like super selective competition. And in advanced grants, it is even less, right? So you can see that it is typically less than 10 grants per discipline. And in this category, there are Nobel Prize winners applying. Actually, in this 2021 competition in PE5 in chemistry, so there was only 10 grants for chemistry for the whole Europe, and one of them was to Nobel Prize winner Ben List, who was just awarded Nobel Prize last year. So you can see that this is really super competitive. But it doesn't mean that we should not try. We definitely should try, but it's tough. Okay, so this is the list of the panels. It is not very well visible, but the ERC always announces the chairs of each panel. So when you apply, you know who will be chair of the panel. But you will not know the panel members. You can look back, let's say 2 years ago, who were the panel members, and you have some clue that some of them probably will be in the panel, because typically 30 to 40% of the panel is renewed every time, and there are always 2 panels that are alternating. So if you want to have some clue who might be the members of your panel, then look at 2 years ago, and some of them will be there. So it is typically between 12 to 15 members. They are from different countries. So certainly they are gender balanced and typically they are all really top scientists, and they cover like all the sub-disciplines in each panel. So there are some keywords, and basically each of the keywords should be covered by at least one or two panel members, which also brings the point that not all of the panel members will be expert in your field, but there should be at least one or two expert in your subfield. So yeah, this is what I have already mentioned. Here is an example of one panel, and these are the keywords, which means the subdisciplines, and like each of them must be covered in the panel. So as you have already heard, and as you certainly know, the application has 3 parts, and we will talk today mostly about the B1 and B2. So the B1 is the most important thing that there is in the ERC application, because this is basically the only part that will be evaluated for sure. The B2 will be evaluated only for those who will be retained for the step 2, which is less than 40% for sure. So the B1 should cover the PI profile, which means basically CV, track record, and some other important information, and then the short synopsis of the proposal, which, however, should also be like self-sustainable. It should contain all important science that you plan to do. Basically, the CV is really very important, and it should be written in a way that you really manifest your excellence and your background and your experience. And for starting and consolidator grants, it is really crucial to provide some proof of independence, depending on your case, but it should definitely show your independence. Career breaks should be also mentioned and justified. You probably know all the details about the let's say maternity leave and care for children and so on. But in principle, there are other reasons like military service or long-term illness and full-time care for somebody. So it is eligible also for men, not just for mothers. So like if it is your case, then you should definitely consider it, whether or not you will basically be eligible for starting or consolidator grants. And also there are people with unusual career paths. So not everybody makes PhD and then goes directly for postdoc and then starts academic career. There are some people who work for industry for a couple of years. So this should be also mentioned, because it will be definitely taken into consideration. So and then. Sorry. Maybe I'll mention still the proof of independence. You should. It is also case by case. I cannot give a general advice. Certainly, if you already have fully independent papers where you are corresponding author, then show them, and this is almost sufficient. But like if it is for instance for a starting grant and you do not have like yet fully independent paper, you are coming straight from postdoc, then you should mention what was your, let's say, contribution to let's say, for instance, to papers that you made on postdocs. Perhaps it was already your own idea that was supported by the supervisor and so on. And certainly it is very, very important for the starting grants. If you do not have yet fully independent position, like independent assistant professor or junior group leader at some institute, it's very important that you at least get a letter of intent from the director of the institute or from the dean, that at least in case you will be given the ERC grant, that at least in that case you will get a fully independent group, because like even for starting grants this is required. Okay, and now let's discuss the extended synopsis. There is only 5-page limit for this section, and you should show the best of the science that you are planning. So it is very difficult to make it. And you should really show the novelty. You should show that it is high risk, high gain, that it is non-incremental, and that it is also hypothesis-driven research, and also investigator-driven research. Certainly, it's good that if you are part of some larger collaboration, but it should be your own research. You should not be just small part in some big collaboration, but it should be your idea, and it should be your leadership in that research. And so the 5 pages limit is very difficult to write up. Let's say that everything is there, and you still fit. And also this B1 part should be general enough, because there will be in the first step, it will be evaluated by 4 members of the panel. And there will be one or two of them who will be experts in your field, and definitely at least 1 or 2 panel members will be just generalists. So it should be general enough so that the generalists understand, and it should be, let's say, concrete and detailed enough that also the experts will appreciate it. So it should be definitely ambitious, and you should very briefly but clearly mention what is the state of the art in the field, and then highlight the knowledge gap. So, so far, people know this and they use this, but there is great need to fill this and that gap, and then your solution will revolutionize the field by doing this and that. So always the structure should be in this way. So. There are some let's say some mistakes that people make. For instance, one of them is that the B1 should be only general, and the B2 should be full detail and specific. This is definitely incorrect and misleading. First thing is that most proposals will never make it to step 2. This is the first thing, and then there will definitely be at least 1 or 2 experts also in the panel. So if it is not specific enough, then you will not make it. And certainly in the step 2, it will be sent out for the B2 will be sent out to external experts, but still it will be evaluated by the panel members as well. So like in the second step, if it makes to the second step, then it will get something like seven reviews. And again, some of them will be from generalists. Not all of them will be just from experts. So like even the B2 should be let's say comprehensible for let's say non-experts. So you should keep this in mind, that you should address both types of reviewers with both parts of the proposal. In the first step, the 4 panel members will typically evaluate something like 15 to 20 proposals, so they can compare the quality among themselves. Whereas in the step 2, the external reviewers will typically see only 1. They will only see your own proposal because they are experts in your very special field. And so they will not be able to compare with other proposals. So that's why then the panel puts then all the external reviews together, and they also interview the candidate in the step 2, and to be able to compare the different proposals. So also in the B2, it is very important to address the state of the art and the objectives, and certainly in the B2 you have more space, so you can like more specifically describe the knowledge gap and And what is the major difference in the B2 is that you should also describe in detail the research methodology. In the B1 part, it is you should mention what you are going to do and just very briefly say how you will do it. But in the B2, you should be really specific and you should specifically address the methodology and also you should have some work plan. It's good to have the Gantt diagram and also you should discuss the potential risks and have a contingency plan how to mitigate those risks. And again, you should keep in mind that to have some chance for success, your proposal should be novel, high risk, high gain, and non-incremental. Basically, the reviewers have to specifically address those questions in their review. So you should give them clue. So if it is novel, tell them how novel, in what aspect it is novel. You must tell them, and it should be high risk, high gain. So do not hide the risk. You mention the risks, but you should let's say have a plan how to mitigate those risks and also. Let's say the proposal should not be linear. It should not be that like if let's say step number 2 will fail, then the rest of the proposal will be impossible. So it's always good to have plan B and plan C if in case this crucial experiment will not work out, because this is normal in science that not everything what you design will work as you plan. Okay, so I already touched the evaluation process. So it's the step 1 and step 2. So in the step 1, only the B1 form is reviewed by the panel members, typically 4 of them. If it is let's say an interdisciplinary proposal that falls not only to one panel but also to let's say the second panel, then the panel will ask for one review from the other panel. In the step 2, basically both B1 and B2 forms are evaluated by panel members, and it is sent out to external reviewers. And then there is the interview phase where the candidates have a short presentation and then questions and answers, and they should present and then defend their proposal. It used to be really on-site visit that everybody came to Brussels and like talk to them face to face. Now, as far as I know, it is still online, right? So, but basically, it doesn't matter. You should prepare your presentation in the same way and should be ready to defend it and answer the questions. So there are some specific questions that the reviewers are asked, and it's good to know about them and write up your proposal in a way that like every question that the reviewers should answer are covered and addressed in your proposal. So question number 1, what they have to answer: to what extent does the proposal address important challenges? So tell them what is the important challenge. To what extent the objectives are ambitious beyond the state of the art? Also quite obvious, but tell them they do not have time, to go into the literature and compare your research with whatever is known already. You must tell them what is novel and how it goes beyond the state of the art. Actually, I forgot to mention the reviewers have relatively limited time to do all the reviews. Like in the step 1, I think it's like 3 weeks, and each reviewer has to review something like 20 proposals. So they do not have time really to read it 5 times and to look into references and check the literature, right? So the good way is that you write up the proposal in such a way that after one careful reading, the reviewer gets all the important points and gets the impression that it is like really super interesting science and that it really is important and beyond the state of the art and all that. I already mentioned that it should be high risk, high gain, so don't hide the risks, mention them, but you should present the plan how to mitigate those risks, and also it should be obvious that if the project is successful, then the gain will be really very important. So high risk, high gain. Then in the B1, you should address scientific approach, not necessarily the methodology, because there will not be enough space for really specifics of the methodology, but at least the approach. And so in the B1, they answer the question whether the scientific approach is feasible. Still, with keeping in mind that still it should be high risk, high gain, like at least if it is relevant, if it has chance to be successful. Whereas in the B2, the reviewers also address the methodology, because in B2 you have the methodology. So then they should answer whether the methodology is appropriate, whether the proposal involves the development of new methodology, and also only in the B2 they comment whether, let's say, the time scale, the resources, the commitment of the team and all that, whether it looks like sufficient for the let's say successful performance of the project. And then in both in step 1 and step 2, the reviewers should comment on the PI. And one of the questions is whether the PI has already demonstrated the ability to conduct groundbreaking research. That should be obvious from your CV. You should give your best papers and let's say comment on importance of the most important results. Then also whether the PI has the scientific expertise and capacity to successfully execute the project. So this should be obvious, but in some cases, especially when the person proposes research a little bit outside of his or her expertise, that they want to move slightly towards different disciplines, then it is important to comment on it. And you may have previously not published in that particular area, but you should demonstrate that you have the capacity or the collaborations, or you may hire a postdoc with this particular expertise, but you should be able to show that like you can outreach to also to the interdisciplinary areas if you include them into your proposal. And also the question is whether the PI provides evidence of creative independent thinking. This is also very important for starting and consolidator grants, because in consolidator grants there definitely must be some independent papers with the applicant as corresponding author, and it should be clear that it was their own let's say creative thinking and innovation. Whereas for the starting grant, there are cases when people apply still from the postdoc, and then you should at least try to sell as much of your independent thinking as you can. Certainly in the starting grants, the panel takes into consideration whether the person has already started his or her own group, or whether they are coming straight from postdoc, because the time frame is from 2 to 7 years after PhD. So in principle, even somebody who is returning back from postdoc has their chance, but certainly the chance is lower than if somebody has already started a group and can show at least a couple of papers that are of their own. Okay, so this I have already mentioned. So in the step one, there are 4 panel members that evaluate each proposal. And some of them are generalists, some of them are experts. So you should address both of them. So it should be interesting and comprehensible enough for the generalists, and it should be also sufficiently rigorous for the experts. Then the proposals are ranked based on the internal reviews, and then during the panel meeting, each proposal is introduced to the panel by the lead reviewer, who summarizes the positive and negative aspects, and then also the other reviewers may contribute to the discussion, and then other panel members who may have looked into the proposal or even not, but they can also express their opinion. And then the panel typically gives some provisional mark, like clear A, B, B, C, C, and so on, and then they go further. And after all proposals are discussed, then they come back to those which are not clear. So those A, B, and BA proposals are the most important, because they are on the edge of whether or not they will be retained to the step 2. And so most of the discussion is about something like 20, 30 proposals that are somewhere between A and B. If it is clear C or BC, then there is not much discussion needed. And the panel can retain to the step 2 only maximum 3 times the number of proposals that will be given in the end. So, but in reality, something like 2.5 times. So like if the success rate is 10%, so typically they can retain 25 to 30% maximum to the step 2. So like 70% or 60 to 70% will be basically killed in the step 1. So this shows really how important is part B1, because like for most proposals, the B2 part will not be even read by anybody. This I have already mentioned. So scientific excellence should be the only criterion, and it is the PI and proposal. And let's say the weight very much differs. I served in the consolidator panel where we kind of agreed that it should be like 1/3 weight on the PI and like 2/3 weight on the proposal. But then in reality, basically only strong applicants with outstanding proposals win, because the competition is so severe that basically like if your CV is not competitive, then you can have like super excellent idea and you will not get it, and like if you have a Nobel Prize and you come with a weak proposal, you will not get it either. So certainly there are some non-relevant criteria that are actually even forbidden to be taken into consideration, which is the gender, race, nation, country, and the host institution. Actually, it is enforced, but certainly, especially the host institution, if you are from Oxford, then you probably have a better chance to get funded than if you are from Lithuania, for instance. That is for sure. There were some discussions whether the panel should somehow compensate, the Eastern Europe for, let's say, not so developed conditions and not so good equipment and so on. But it typically, doesn't work. So this is one of the reasons for low success rate of applicants from the Eastern Europe. And then the panel writes up the evaluation reports for the rejected proposals. the panel should be like super polite, and they have like forbidden some expressions there. So basically, what it means is that you will not learn what was wrong, right? Because like they are so super careful that basically you will not learn much. Because typically we wrote up, the first versions of the reviews, and then the people from the ERC office actually read it and said, you cannot say this, you cannot say that, and you cannot say that. So we deleted all those, let's say, controversial things, and then basically what remained was not very useful for the applicants to learn what was wrong. But it is very important what mark you get, because like if you get B in the step 1, then in 2 years you can apply once again, whereas if you get C, then like you have ban for 2 years. So it really matters, even if they reject you, how they evaluate you. And then for those proposals who are retained for step 2, they suggest external reviewers. They typically give 6 to 9 names, and sometimes even more, because like the success rate in getting the reviews is not very high. It is not paid, and people are busy, so they very often like decline the invitation, and sometimes they even don't answer and don't do it. So it is difficult to get enough external reviews. And like typically at least 3 external reviews must be obtained, but sometimes they send to 6 reviewers and all of them respond. So it is very different. Sometimes there are only 2 or 3 external reviews, sometimes there are more. In my own experience, it is better to get less than more external reviews, because the more reviews you get, there is a higher chance that somebody will be really, really harsh and will kill you. But you cannot choose this. It is like really just the chance. And so the external reviewers act as experts, and still the panel members review in the step 2 both B1 and B2 and as generalists. So in total, something between 7 to 9 reviews are obtained, and then always again the lead reviewers should compare and summarize all of them, and should draft the evaluation report, and should prepare some questions for the interview. And then there is a panel meeting, and they interview each applicant. It very much differs panel by panel. In some panels, they allow 20 minutes. In some they allow 10 minutes, and I've heard that there are some panels that allow even 5 minutes. So even 3, or even 3 minutes. So you should read what the panel writes you, and prepare the presentation that you will fit into the allocated time. And the discussion, so you present your proposal, and then there is discussion. And the discussion is led by the lead reviewer, and the lead reviewer should first ask the questions to cover the critical points raised by the external reviewers. It is a disadvantage for the applicant that the applicant does not know these questions before. So you should be ready for any kind of really nasty questions, and be able to react. And then after like the most pressing questions from the critical points of the reviewers are exhausted, then the other panel members can ask their own question. In our panel, we decided that the first question to every interviewed applicant was, what is your standing in your field worldwide, and who are your major competitors, and what is like your advantage over them? How can you beat them if they might be big groups, at excellent institutions, and then followed the questions based on the external reviewers. And then typically after the presentation, there is a short break for discussion of the panel, typically 3 to 5 minutes, and they just quickly give it some again provisional ranking, again A, B, B, and so on. And always after the end of each day, they like rediscuss all the proposals of the day, and they may change something because like the one who gets first gets some mark, and then he or she might be given B, and then like all the proposals would be worse than that. So they can change it, right? So, and the last day after finishing all the interviews, there is the final discussion, and the final ranking is performed, and it is rediscussed several times and re-ranked several times, and like the final ranking must be agreed by all panel members. So sometimes there was discussion until very late evening. Once we were there until 11 p.m. and still fighting about several proposals that basically it should be consensual at the end. And like when giving the provisional ranking and the final ranking, sometimes it is better to get some A's and some B's than to get some A's and some C's, rather than to be given straight only B's, because like if everybody agrees that it is B, it is like a good average, but it is nothing special. But if some people give you A and maybe somebody C, then it looks that it is really a high risk proposal, that some people don't believe it, but some people believe in it and like it. And then like if you get A from some panel members, then it is high chance that they will fight for your proposal, because then it is always a fight. And if somebody will strongly support you, then you might win. If everybody gives you like good mark but nothing special, then you will not get it. So this is what I have just mentioned. So like if in the first let's say round your proposal get, let's say, A, B, B, C, it is better than to get all B's, because then at least the guy who gave you A might enthusiastically advocate your proposal. I have seen proposals that in the first step, they almost did not make it, and there was fight whether or not to let them into step 2, and then in the step 2 they were on the top. So this is very important. It is also very important to give good impression in the interview, because there is some provisional ranking even before the interview, but it can change dramatically, both upwards and downwards, based on the performance and also on the way how you address the questions. I would very much discourage you from overselling. I have seen excellent proposals that were basically killed because of overselling. That if somebody claims that he or she will cure cancer, then it is clearly visible that they are not realistic. So, or solve the energy crisis of the world. I have seen one proposal that actually promised that, right? So. Certainly, you can claim that, let's say, your novel approach will contribute to maybe future therapies of cancer. This is okay, but you should not be unrealistic and for instance promise that you will cure cancer. So some general tips. Definitely, the first tip, the tip number 1 is have a great idea. If you don't have a great idea, then don't waste time by writing up ERC proposal. Then you have the idea, then you should select the panel, and you should write up for the panel, because you should look into what are the disciplines in that panel, and what will be the reviewers who will evaluate you, and you should write for them. There are some interdisciplinary proposals that can go, for instance, either to physics or to chemistry. And perhaps you can choose whether to put it into physics or into chemistry. But if you choose the panel, then you should write up either for physicists or for chemists. So the same proposal could be written in 2 different ways, depending on what panel you have decided to target. And you should keep in mind that the panel is heterogeneous. And in some panels, actually, for instance, in the panel where I served, which was synthetic chemistry and materials, about half of the panel were synthetic chemists and the other half of the panel were material scientists. And like you should at least, or the proposal should be interesting also for the other half of the panel that is not necessarily like very friendly to the other part of the panel. So like in our panel, it often was that, the material people, try to push the material grants and the chemists, try to push the chemical grants. And then there was a fight between them and like if the let's say the material proposal was sufficiently interesting for the chemists or vice versa, then it was like higher chance that the other members of the panel would be willing to support it. So you should keep in mind the heterogeneity of the panel, and you should look into the panel, and if you see that there is some other discipline, and if maybe your proposal could be interesting also to the other discipline, mention it and give the reviewer the chance to appreciate your particular proposal. And definitely, what is very important, start writing with B1. As I mentioned, B2 will most probably never be read by anybody. So start with B1 and make it perfect. And only then you can write up the B2 part. Be ambitious and original. The ERC will not fund any butter and bread proposal, and definitely not continuation of previous work. When I served in the consolidator panel of consolidator grants, we had many applications from ERC starting grant holders who had excellent results from the ERC starting grant and proposed basically continuation of the same for consolidator grant. None of them got it. There should be a new idea and significant shift and significant advancement forward. There is always a question, about preliminary results and, let's say, compromising novelty of your proposal. If your proposal is really like groundbreakingly novel, if you don't have any preliminary results, then it might not like be reliable. They will not believe you that you can make it. But like if you have too many preliminary results that basically it looks that the problem is solved, then you will not get it either. So there should be a good balance. Like for instance, I can speak for chemistry. So if you let's say propose that you will discover new reaction, and you have no let's say evidence that this reaction can ever work, then they will probably not believe you. But if you give some evidence that based on this and that literature it might have chance, and we have at least tried a couple of proof of concept experiments and the reaction works with very low yield, but we have the product, and so it looks promising that it might work. This gives you credibility, and still it will retain the novelty. And what is also important is that if you have those preliminary results, it is the best if they are yet unpublished. So if you plan to apply for ERC grant and you already started with it and you have some preliminary results, it is advisable not to publish too early and like keep them at least for evaluation of the proposal unpublished, because then if major part of or the major point of your grant is already published, then you compromise the novelty. And like especially for starting and consolidator grants, you should work on your CV and be independent and show that you are independent. So. Like if you should try to have papers in top journals. It's certainly good if they are highly cited, you get awards and so on. But you don't have to have like too many papers. It's better to have like your own papers that are really in top journals and are highly cited, rather than to have like too many papers in weak journals. And like regarding predatory journals like MDPI, for instance, I have seen in the panel that people like counted MDPI journals as -1. I don't necessarily say that it is correct, but at least you risk that some people might take it in this way. And for starting and consolidator grants, there should be some papers without the previous and current mentors, and especially at some institutions it is still like common that the head of the department or head of the group are automatically added to all papers. Like this is guest authorship that should not be allowed, and if you do it, then you basically compromise your own achievements, and you may you may fail only because of that. And certainly, to be eligible, you must be better than others, because you might be really very good, you might be excellent, and it still will not be enough because the others will be even better. Okay, so in the proposal, definitely clearly state where is the conceptual novelty and why is it important. If the panel members have to look for it and read some other literature to get the point, it is really wrong. And clearly compare and distinguish your project with the current state of the art. That is also obvious. Definitely, you should not lie and oversell. False statements, unjustified claims, and so on typically get the proposals killed. And also like avoid the buzzwords. There are some proposals that like use all the buzzwords that people think are important, and if there is no essence in that, then it is really bad. Also, it's a question of whether you should write up proposals on some fashionable topics that are now considered to be the timely topics, or whether you should come with some completely new idea. It is difficult to judge that. Certainly, some of the proposals on those timely, fashionable topics will get it, because, like, the panel members will consider this is now the important challenge. But if you are, but there will be definitely many proposals on those fashionable topics, and you will compete also among them. Whereas if you come with some completely different ideas that is not like in the mainstream now, and you succeed to convince the panel that it might be one of the, let's say, future fashionable topics, then you are on a good way. And definitely use graphics. A well-designed scheme or figure tells you much more than several paragraphs of text, and you should also again keep in mind that the reviewers have very limited time to read your proposal, and the best way is that if you can write up a proposal, or if you can design the graphics in a way that basically without reading the text, the reviewer can get basically all the important information. What is the challenge? What is the knowledge gap? How you will do it, and how it is important just from the graphics? Then you are like on the very good way, because like if there are several pages of plain text and the reviewer has to read it and then check literature and so on, it typically doesn't work very efficiently. And to the end, there were some questions from the audience, and I was asked to address them. But Zdeněk told me that he addressed some of them. But I will address at least few of them. I think the first one is very important. I would like to understand what is the best strategy to choose a research topic, also when applying for instance, Gatcher Junior grant, whether to apply for the same topic or something different. If you can conceive two excellent ideas that are eligible for ERC and Gatcher Junior Star, go for it, but it is rather unlikely. So the rules allow you to apply for both, and then like certainly if you get ERC grant, then you will return the starting grant to Gatcher, and everybody will be happy. So you are allowed to apply with the same topic, but certainly the writing up of the Gatcher and ERC is slightly different, so you should keep this in mind. This is also quite important question, whether the proposal in the natural sciences should include application of the methods developed during the project. It is certainly advantage, but it is not requested. This is basic research, so you do not have to show it. But if you show at least the potential for application, and it is obvious that it may have also like important application potential, it can help you. But it is not required. This is also quite important question that, you know, for ERC starting grant, the period can vary from 2 to 7 years after PhD, whether the panel takes that into account. Yes, it does. Certainly, if somebody applies straight from postdoc, certainly the criteria will be slightly different compared to somebody who already has their own group. But it does not necessarily mean that, you know, the one who is applying from postdoc will win. Actually, if you apply from postdoc, the idea must be really novel and really nice, that they want to give you the chance to realize it. And this answers also the last question, whether it is required to have corresponding author publication to prove independence in ERC starting grant. I have seen proposals that didn't have it and still got it, but certainly it is much better if you have. As I mentioned, if the idea is really groundbreakingly novel, and the panel feels that you need to get the chance, then you might get it. But it is certainly much better to already have some independent papers. But don't be afraid to apply early, right? So if you apply 2 years after PhD, you will probably not get it, but you will gain some experience, and you will probably get B, and in another 2 years you may apply and you already might have your independent papers, and you can increase your chance. Okay, so this is all, and thank you for attention.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I can see a raised hand, so. And we have one more comment from Professor Strakos.
Sorry, just a little clarification. When I addressed this third question, which was put in the last slide about the methods and techniques developed in the project, I understood it differently than Michal did. Okay, so I understood it as whether they should be novel methodology within the project itself. Michal understood it as application out of the project. Okay, so we talk about a little bit different things. But I agree completely with what was said. So.
What was the question?
So I had a quick question related to this corresponding author issue. Yeah. And the question is, to what extent do I have to kind of explain the standards in the field? Because in computer science, in my field, if you're the first author on the paper, then that means you've done most of the work. There's sort of no labeling of corresponding author, but it was mentioned that sometimes the order is alphabetic.
Okay, I cannot speak for computational science, but I guess that the panel members will be also computational science and scientists, and they will know this. But in like major part of natural sciences, it is that like the first author is typically the one who did most of the experimental work, and the corresponding author, who is typically the last author with the star, is the one who conceived the idea and basically led the research. But I agree that in some disciplines it is different, and the panel like should know it.
To this, I think it doesn't really matter which kind of science it is. I think it is important, and you have a lot of space, and it's really, I'm repeating myself, but it's about you, what do you decide to stress in your CV. So if you select this paper and you will add 2 or 3 sentences, what was your contribution to it and what was your role in the team, that will be absolutely perfect. You know, and you can be the last one.
We have 2 more questions on Slido, but I'm thinking maybe we will keep them, and afterwards we will ask all the questions. So I remind you, you have the opportunity to raise questions via Slido. And now I'd like to ask our guest from the European Commission, Associated Professor Jana Šiftová, who will present what we mysteriously called technical aspects of evaluation. So these are a variety of issues that we do not typically address within the standard presentation, but scientists should be aware of these issues, and they are also frequently asked. So we are looking forward to this mysterious presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to present the technical aspects. But you know, the position of the last speaker is always a bit hard, because a lot of the issues were already covered by Professor Hocek and Professor Strakos, and but I will try to make my best. And I have to say that I prepared this presentation as a la carte demand from the Technology Center. So it was like, I understood that these are the most frequently asked questions that you as potential applicants have. So I will try to touch these issues, but of course I can answer any kind of technical questions or questions related to the ERC evaluation process. So this is the type of topics that I was asked to cover, but of course we can jump some of them, or we can get to other ones. But I will start with the selection of panel members as referees. That was the first topic I was asked to cover, and as you already see, and as Professor Hocek already explained, the evaluation process is a 2-step process. So you have a two-step evaluation, but one single submission. So this is a bit maybe it's a bit different to other granting schemes, but you basically have to write both parts of your proposal and apply with them, but it's possible that the part B2 will not be used, so that's why the part B1 is so important. Everything was said about the evaluation process, about the step 1 and step 2, so I will not repeat it. I will just precise one thing. So the step 1 panel meetings are held in Brussels, and the panel members nowadays again can gather together after the COVID rules were a bit isn't. So this is just the panel and the panel members, the experts who are meeting in Brussels and deciding if your proposal will be B or C, which is quite important. Maybe you don't see it as a big difference because it means that you are rejected, but it's a big difference because it means that you will have to wait 1 or 2 years with your resubmission, and 2 years for somebody who's already on the edge of, for example, starting run period could be quite a lot. So that's quite important also to distinguish between Bs and Cs, although it might not be seen as that much important. That some proposals are retained for the step 2, and then the step 2 meeting is nowadays again held in Brussels, so the panel members are meeting face to face and discussing face to face, but the PIs, the principal investigators, the applicants, are online. I would personally say the experience is very good with this, because first it's environmentally friendly, and as a geographer I have to say that I'm very much in favor of this step. And second, we just realized that the PIs are much less nervous because they are at their homes or they are at the universities, and it's really, I think I can really say that it was a big change, because then before COVID they were gathering in the corridors of ERC and they were waiting and they were quite nervous, and so I think this is not a bad decision. And with the hybrid meetings and with all the technology that we have learned during the last 2 or 3 years, I think this is really quite easy to do. So after the step 2, you know that you are evaluated by the panel members and the remote reviewers, who this time are really experts in your field. And then in step 2, it's just an A and B proposals. You will get the feedback after step 1 if you are applicant with B or C proposal. So if you don't get any feedback shortly, for you after step 1 is a good news, because it means that you were retained for the step 2, and after step 2 everybody gets a feedback. So this means that in the end you will be able to read every single evaluation report that was written about your proposal, and these famous panel comments, or the summary that the panel chair and the lead reviewer had to draft. So this is about the evaluation process, and I was asked to talk briefly about how the panel members are selected. So you have already heard that we have panel members. It's about 15 to 17 members per panel. It depends. There are big panels, there are smaller panels, and there is always one chairperson. All these people are really very high-level scientists, and they are recruited basically by the ERC Scientific Council. There is no other agency that would have this type of body, so this is really unique for ERC. So we have the top of the top scientists recommending and searching for the top of the top experts to evaluate your proposal. So we have about 400 panel members for each call. For Synergy, it's a bit more, because these are a bit more complicated proposals. And you can see that most of them are from European Union and associated countries, but we have also panel members from US and other parts of the world, Japan, New Zealand, Singapore, whatever you can think of. And then we are recruiting the remote reviewers. It was also covered by Professor Hocek. So it's about 2,000 people per call. And these people are recommended by the panel members. So really for each proposal which is retained for the step 2, the panel members recommend the best people with the best expertise for the particular proposal. So now it is about who is publishing in the same area, who is the expert in this area, etc. Of course, it's not that easy, and a lot of people decline. So that's why it's such a high number, but in the end you have 2 or 3 up to 5 remote reviews, and that's really a success when we have this number. And the evaluation is very similar as the evaluation is the normal practice in peer-reviewed journals. So it means that you, as a remote reviewer, will have only 1, maximally 2 proposals if you are a real expert and really your expertise counts. And then you cannot you don't have any measure how to compare it with the rest of the computer. So you really with the rest of the proposals. So you really evaluate just the one proposal which is on your desk. And how are these people contacted or selected? So as I said, this is the scientific council members who are selecting these people, who are recommending them and contacting them. Well, not them personally, there is a secretary for it, but who are recommending. But On the other hand, if you look, and I don't know if you can see, but if you look at the expertise of these people, of course it's just a limited group, so sometimes it can happen that there is not an expert in some area. So in this case, the scientific council members can approach the panels, the panel chairs or the panel coordinators, and can ask them if they can recommend somebody who could be a good panel member in the next years. Of course, it has to be always approved by the scientific council, and these people have to be real experts, and they have to have the necessary skills. They have to have enough expertise in academia and expertise in this field of their evaluation, and they also have to have good language competencies, because most of the evaluation is of course held in English, so that's quite important. And when selecting these panel members, ERC tries to balance the gender, the geographical aspect as well, and the rotation, as you see. So it will never be the same group of people the next year in the panel. So even when you look through the internet and you try to realize who could be your panel member, you will never guess them all. You can see the people who served as panel members 2 years ago or the last year, but there will be always some rotation. There will be always some changes. So it's not that easy. And so sometimes the panels have the power to help the scientific council with the selection, but it depends. There are members of the scientific council who decide themselves, who decide on their own on the new panel members, and there are some areas of expertise which is not, for example, perfectly covered, or they don't know the experts, so that's when they cooperate with the RCA people or the panel chairs. So that's about the selection. And then I was asked about the conflicts of interests. So this is a very complex issue, a very complex chapter, because of course the idea of fairness and impartiality is, I would say, at the heart of the ERC evaluation process. So there are different types of conflict of interest, and I think it's not surprising to anybody of you, because sometimes these reasons are really obvious. So if you are a member of the team or the team who submitted in the same call, you cannot be a panel member or you cannot evaluate the proposal. At the same time, if you were involved in the preparation, you might not be part of the team, but you may be involved, you were helping with the proposal, you were mentoring the PI, so then of course you cannot be the evaluator. Or you would directly benefit from the proposal if it is accepted or rejected. So there are a couple of reasons, and I think we don't have to read through them all because it's more or less clear. And there are two types of conflict of interest in ERC. First of them is the so-called out-of-call conflict of interest. So I would say this is like the less severe conflict of interest, and it means that the given panel member who has this type of conflict of interest cannot be involved in the evaluation and in the discussion about this particular proposal, but can stay for the rest of the panel discussion and for other proposals. So this happens when out of call. Sorry, no. So this is the most more severe. Sorry. So of course this is when you submitted the call, the proposal to the same call, or you act as a team member in the proposal submitted to the call, or you were involved in the preparation. Or you have some close family ties to somebody who has the proposal in this call, and or if you are a member of the NCP, but then I think you know better and you would not be applying for ERC. It might sound quite funny, but we already had a situation when there was somebody evaluating proposal in a panel meeting, and they realized that it's their spouse who is one of the PIs, and the person didn't know. So everything is possible, and well, it's the lack of communication in the household, obviously, but it can happen. Yeah, really. But that's also a possibility. No, I'm joking, but this really happened, and it's just. You can see that sometimes these things are not completely obvious, because the panel members, they have the names and they have the affiliations, but sometimes they realize at the step 2 that they know the person and that they already met them or they cooperated with them. So it's not like always 100% clear. So that's why it's always better to state the conflict of interest even if in the later stages. And then there is this out of room, so this is the less severe case, and it is in the case that you are employed in the same university, so you should not be evaluating the proposals from the same university, or you were collaborating with the PI during the last 5 years, you might have a paper together, although you might not be the best friends or the colleagues, but in a bigger teams it might happen. So this is also the situation which should block you from evaluating this proposal. It might be that you are the PhD tutor of this person, or also there are situations of scientific rivalry or professional hostility with the PI. Everything is possible. I haven't had a case like this, but it's more I can imagine. And any other situation that would lead to impartial review of the proposal. So in this case, the panel members just leave the room when this proposal is discussed, and then they can come back, or they are put into the lobby when it's a hybrid meeting. And I would like to say that it's the question, or it's the responsibility of the panel member to declare that they have a conflict of interest. So that's why they have the list of the proposals, they have the list of the PIs and of the institution to go through before they start the evaluation. And so there are several moments when they can declare the interest. Before starting to evaluate it, it might happen that they start to read it and then they realize that they have a conflict of interest. But this is their responsibility. But then also the people from ERC work quite hard, and we conduct every check possible to reveal the conflict of interest. So the proposals are checked against the publication, the proposals are checked against the host institutions, against the name of the members of the panel. So this is really, it's quite a complex task. It takes some time and it's a hard work, but there are really different checks run before the evaluation, like the real evaluation starts. And last but not least, I would like to say that as a potential applicant, you have the right to select some people that you want to be excluded from the pool of reviewers. So if you know that there is somebody who really hates you and they would write a terrific or terrible evaluation, you can mention these people. And then, of course, they have no right to evaluate the proposal. It might happen that they are not at all in the panel, they might be in the panel, so it's always good if you have these feelings it's very easy to put them in the application, and then you can, breathe better. So that's about the conflicts of interests. And of course that there are some exceptional cases, and there are some institutions which are really huge and large legal entities. So in this case it happens that the person is by name in the same host institution, but the institution is so big that this, for example, the laboratories or the departments have completely nothing to do together. So in this case, the panel member must sign a declaration in this case of conflict of interest, and they can evaluate the proposal. This usually happens in these large research institutions when there is like 20 different specializations or 20 different labs, and the people don't know each other, and they are in different disciplines, but the name is the same. So in the first step, you would just exclude them because they are from the same institution, but it might happen that they can evaluate the proposal in the end. There is also the possibility that the expertise of this panel member is so unique that he or she is really needed for the proper evaluation of this proposal. Then it's the same. It's the same case. So then they can sign the declaration and they will be used as the reviewers. Then I was asked to talk about the interview. I was asked to cover the most typical questions of the interview, but this is absolutely impossible. Because as you have heard in the presentation of Professor Hocek, each panel is different and each panel has a different approach to interviewing. And so it's very hard to come with a typical questions. And also there are panels that allow you to have a presentation. As you have heard, it's sometimes 3 minutes, it's 5 minutes, it can be 7 minutes. But there are also panels that which don't have a presentation at all, and they just used all the time for questions and answers. So it's also a possibility. So really each panel is different. There are panels that like the animations and that like presentation with pictures. There are others that hate this kind of presentation, so it's not allowed. So it's really very different. It really depends on the panel. But what is common for all the interviews and all the panel is to show that you are passionate with your research. This is absolutely the most important, and to show that you are proud of what you are doing. Because once you have in step 2, once you are invited to the interview, it's showing that you have a very good chances, more than 30%, to get your ERC grant, and you have your unique opportunity to convince the panel. And because you wrote the proposal, or I suppose you wrote the proposal, so you are the person who knows the proposal well, so that's absolutely unique opportunity. So as was already said, you have to stress the main and the new concepts on the very beginning. You should be prepared for the questions, but show the originality and show the curiosity, and also spark the curiosity of the panel so that they would ask you clever questions. And please do stick to the time, because it's almost a rule that nowadays everybody is so well prepared and everybody is rehearsing that if you don't stick to the time, it almost shows that there is something wrong with you. So this is really, this is not, I'm repeating it every time. It's like rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. You can tell it to your husband, to your dog, I don't know, but rehearse as many times as possible, because this is completely, I'm always astonished when I see that the PI has 5 minutes for presentation and there is time running, and it's 4:58 and he or she says, thank you for your attention and I'm ready for your questions. And it's like, that's always the moment that shows that you did your homework well and you prepared yourself. And I'm telling this because I think we as Czechs, we have this problem that we like to listen to ourselves and go on and on and on. So this is not the case. This is really, for this unique day, please don't do that. When you are presenting to your students, that's absolutely okay, but not for the ERC interview, because this is always the first sign that you are a professional. So as I said, I cannot share with you questions that are the most common, because it's different for every panel, and what is more important, it's different for every proposal, because there are proposals that are clear from the first or second reading, so people know from the first minute which questions they will ask, but there are proposals when we are really waiting for the interview to just make it a bit clear to the panel what's the proposal about, and then the questions are, generated after or on the base of the interview. So it's very hard to say, and it's really different. But this is what I really like about the interviews and about the evaluation process, that it's very vivid, it's dynamic, it cannot be prepared. But there are only two things I would really stress out to be, which can be prepared. And the first one was already mentioned here, and is the risk mitigation. Although you might not expect anything wrong happen during your project, you should be always prepared to demonstrate that you know that something can go wrong, and to show that you know what to do in this case. So, show that you know the risks, show that you have some plan to mitigate this risk, and that you can somehow deal with it. For example, for me, from the social science, it can be that, for example, you are relying on some kind of data or database which might in the end not be accessible or not be available, so you have to show the ability to get the data from another sources, etc. In the laboratory settings, it can be absolutely different, so I think you can think about this much better than I do, but you have to show that there is a plan B in the case that something goes wrong. And this question, which was already discussed here about the interdisciplinary proposals, I would not say that the interdisciplinary proposals are in a worse position. It's not true. It's just one thing. It's clear that you cannot be specialist and you cannot be expert in everything. And we don't even want it. We want you to be expert in one thing and do it really well. But you can always show in your proposal that you know the experts in the second half of your interdisciplinary proposal, and that you know these collaborators, and that you will take them as a part of your team. So better than presenting yourself as a physicist and chemist at the same time, as was the example here presented, say that, okay, I'm an excellent physicist, but for the chemistry part of the proposal or of the project, I will collaborate with person AB, and they will do this part of the project. So you have to cover the missing expertise in case of interdisciplinary proposals. And then there is another thing which you have to be prepared to, and that is that it always might happen in science, especially now when everything is super dynamic in the publishing realm, that there is some similar work, that somebody else already published something similar in the meantime. So this can happen, and it happens, and you just have to be aware. So it should not surprise you, and you have to be prepared to justify how similar, or on the other hand, how different the work is to what you are proposing, and what novel, or what is the novel thing, a novel aspect that you can add to this. So it's absolutely okay that there is already a literature, but you have to show that you have a different point of view on what is already published, on you can bring something new. And it's also okay if you have some preliminary results. It's because it was said, and it's very important that your research is not incremental, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a preliminary results and you can show them. And what I always say is to try to show in your interview what you want to be famous after the 5 years. So if it's the perpetuum mobile, let it be, but you have to sell it. So that's about the interviews. And I would also like to draw your attention to the videos we have on YouTube channel, because there is plenty of materials about ERC, and you can read different leaflets and whatever, but there are videos made by my colleagues, so it's the people who work in ERC and who work every day with your proposals and read them and know what are the mistakes and what are the important things. So you can check these videos, they are really nice and they are not long. So this is for the interviews. And then with the evaluation, I will go quickly through this because a lot of this was covered in the previous presentation. So really, the only evaluation criterion is the excellence, either of the proposal or of the principal investigator. So there is absolutely no way that the host institution is evaluated. There is no way that your race or gender will be part of the evaluation. It's only about your proposal and yourself. And another question was about the panel comments, but a lot of this was said. So the panel comments are the evaluation reports which are written by the lead reviewer. Every proposal has the so-called lead reviewer. It means that one of these 4 panel members that are reviewing your proposal will have to write these panel comments. So there is always a standard introductory part, and then there is this part of the panel comment drafted by the lead reviewer and agreed by the rest of the people reviewing your proposal. So until everybody agrees with the wording of the panel comment, the comment is not finalized. So that's quite important, and it cannot be another review. There should not be too many recommendations of what to do better, but there can be some. And it should not be copy-pasted from the individual reviews. So it is a summary, it is a comment, but it's not another review. And it should be a conclusive statement from the panel which explains and justifies the decision. So it should be clear from the panel comment why you were selected or why you were not selected, what was wrong. So I think it's not completely the case that you don't know what was wrong, because it should be mentioned at least in 1 or 2 sentences. But on the other hand, it's true that it should be super polite and should not offend anybody, because these evaluations are based on the scientific judgment and not on anything else. So that's why we try to be polite, and we try to check these materials, but we never interfere in the scientific part. It's really very, very important. So if you receive panel comments which are bad, then it's not, it's about the work of the panel or the panel chair, but usually it's not the case, and it will be very clear what was wrong in your proposal. And then also you have all the 4 reviews from the panel members, and you also have the reviews from the external reviewers. So that's about the panel comments. And I will very quickly, because my time is almost up, I will quickly comment on the budget, because it was not mentioned before. I was asked to talk about how budgets are evaluated, but first, I would say that I would not be too afraid as an applicant of the budget, because there are panel members who don't read the budget at all, and no, they don't have to. So it's like it's not obligatory. So most of them really focus only on the scientific part and on the part of the proposal, and some of them, if they have time and they are really enjoying reading this kind of documents, they check the budgets. But what is important, that only the budgets are only evaluated in the step 2. So the only check that we asked to our panel members to do is if the resources are reasonable and justified. And this is so broad definition that really anything can be put into your budget, but it just has to be a common sense that you are asking for these things. Cannot be exaggerated or out of the norm, which is in your field. So ERC has the full cost model. It means that you will receive the 100% of the requested budget. This was already explained that you can ask for an extra 1 million in every granting scheme for some additional funding, startup costs if you are moving to Europe from different countries. if you need a major equipment, if you have to access some large facilities, or if you plan some really special and large experimental or field work. So these are the reasons that are, appropriate to ask for another 1 million euro. As regards the PI salary, this is also not a problem anymore because it's an eligible cost. The panel cannot make any recommendation on salaries because the salaries differ in each country. So this was like, it used to be a problem before, but now it's not. So you can ask any salary you like if your employer and if your host institution is okay with it and you make a scheme with them, then it's absolutely appropriate. And there is only this dedication that you have to spend at least half of your time in the European Union or associated country, which I think is absolutely perfect because it means that you don't even have to leave your country if you are based somewhere else, but it's just that you have to spend this time working in your associated country, and then it's the 50, 40 or 30% of your commitment of your time that you have to spend working on the project. So, yeah.
Actually, there is one significant difference over, for instance, Gotcha grants, that basically the PI does not have to request his or her salary in ERC grant. There could be there must be the commitment, but like if you have salary from your institution, you don't have to ask for the salary. So if you prepare to hire, let's say, one more postdoc, you don't have to ask for portion of your salary, whereas in Gotcha, if you have 20%, then you have to ask for 20% of your salary. This is one significant difference. And perhaps one more comment to the budget. The budget is not evaluated at all. Only in the step 2, basically they will decide whether the budget is appropriate, and they may suggest some reduction of the budget if they feel the budget is not justified. But if they decide they will fund your project, then basically the budget does not play a role, and only if it is inappropriate, they may suggest some reduction. But it doesn't matter whether you ask for the maximum or half of that; it will not make any difference in the evaluation. So don't be afraid to ask for more. This is the point.
Well, I would say don't be afraid to ask for the sum which is appropriate to your call, because to ask for more if there is no reason for it also cause or could attract a problem. But yes, basically it's true. So if there are some adjustments done by the panel to your budget, it really has to be exceptional and properly justified, and it's really considered on a case-by-case basis. So there are never cuts across the panel, and it has to be decided during the step 2 panel meeting. So you don't have to be afraid that after you have your grant or the letter that your application was successful, then there will be the cuts. So it's always decided already on the panel meeting. So. And also it has to be mentioned in the panel comment. So this is about the budget, so I would not be too nervous about the budget. And there is always the host institution which should help you with creating the budget. So this is like, you should really focus on the scientific part. And yeah. And then last thing I was asked to cover, but it was also quite covered before, is if there are some differences between step 1 and step 2 of the evaluation. So basically everything was said, the questions are the same. So it's groundbreaking nature, ambition, feasibility. So this was already presented here. Then about the scientific approach. Again, this was mentioned, and then there is this part of the principal investigator. It's a bit different for starting on consolidator and then for advanced and synergy, because of course the advanced grant PIs are already well-established specialists, so then there are quite different questions. But as one thing I could precise about the difference between step 1 and step 2 is that during the step 1, as you already heard, it's only panel members who evaluate your proposal. and there is this ranking, or there is this scale from 0 to 5 for the project, and 0 to 5 for the principal investigator. So in the end, before you start the discussion, you have some scores for each proposal from each evaluator, and this is the starting point for the discussion. So it can really finish in a completely different ranking, and we don't use, or these scores should not be used like for, I don't know, the pre-ranking or something, because always the discussion is much more important. But I just wanted to show you that it looks like this in our documents, and every panel member has to evaluate the proposal and the PI. In the step 2, it's similar. So the panel members, the insiders, they again rank the part B2, the project, the whole project, and the principal investigator. And then we have these external, these remote reviewers. But ERC decided like 2 or 3 years ago that they will not use the same ranking. It used to be the case before. But in the end, it was clear that as they cannot compare the proposals, they have absolutely no idea what 1 or 3 means, what 5 could mean. So it was very hard to say. So now, for the last 2 years, I guess, it's just recommended, highly recommended, or not recommended. So this is the case from my panel from a recent evaluation. So you can see that it really can end like this, that there are the panel is quite happy with the proposal. There is just one panel member who was not that enthusiastic, but the external reviewers had completely different opinions. So in this case, the panel discusses the proposal so long until they come to a discussion. And it can be a long discussion, but it's always a fair discussion, and always every evaluation is taken into account. It's taken into account if the expert is from the field or from an interdisciplinary point of view. So everything it's really discussed from different angles. So you don't have to be afraid of this part. And I will also add that even in the case that the panel members are not able to finish this discussion on a consensual basis, then there is also the possibility to vote on the proposals. So that's all. There's always, it's a result of discussion. So as was shown before, the fact that you have all A's in the beginning of the panel week doesn't mean that you cannot end with the C in the last day of the panel meeting, and vice versa. So it's always based on the discussion. And that's all from me, and I will be happy to answer any questions you have, and please don't hesitate to visit any of these networks or pages where all the information is available in English, and then you have the information from the Czech NCP, which is in Czech, so I think this is very useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. Zdeněk would like to briefly comment.
Just little comment and kind of a joke-looking comment to the, say, conflict of interest, because I had an experience with this husband and wife situation, which was for me terrible. Not with my wife, but I was a panel chair, and the composition of the panel is not easy always. So we had some people who refused to be panel members, etc. So we were on a very low side, and so we desperately need more panel members, but it was difficult to get them. So then we still were very low, something like 13 of us or something like that, and then very last moment when it was the submission was closed, it was found that wife of one of the panel members have applied, and that means we lost that panel member, and that expertise then was missing in the panel. And I can tell you, this was a nightmare. So, so this situation can happen, and there was unfortunately kind of a bad discussion between the man and the wife. I mean, they should just decide before, because there was no possible to replace the panel member already because the evaluation started. So there was nothing what can be done from the side of the ERC. Little comment on the vote. Yes, agreed what has been said. During my career as a ERC panel evaluator, so I remember only one case when we voted out of, I don't know how many, very many cases, because we typically had more than 100 proposals, 120, 140. Sometimes our panel was very, I would say, popular, and then that means about 600 or something applications, so only one vote.
Yeah, it's true that it's very exceptional, but I just wanted to say that it's also a possibility.
So I've shared Slido, and I'll start asking the questions that you are interested in. How to deal with the problem of not being allowed to publish without the head of department? It is not written law, but the boss does not allow that. There is a request to explain about no PhD students in the past for an applicant who wishes to apply for a consolidator grant, that yes, they should be in the extended CV, or one should somehow put this info somewhere within the proposal. Can you please address that?
Well, I'm not sure if I correctly understand whether it is about how to hide let's say the fact that you had no PhD student, or
I think it's where to explain, where to put into proposal.
Yeah, because basically the CV is like the format is free. So like if you want to stress that you had several successful PhD students, you can still put it in, but it is not requested now. So it is the only difference.
And there is no extended CV. There is just one CV.
Yeah, okay.
So, and it's like there is still more and more space for your own initiative, so you can really take a narrative form or almost narrative form of your CV, and really this is what I recommend. You stress your strengths and just hide the weak parts of your CV.
How much do I have to be specific about planned team members? How many details are needed?
Basically, almost nothing. It should be. Basically, you should state the number of postdocs and number of PhD students, but you do not have to put any names at all. So, just the composition of the team in the types of positions that you are going to fill.
I would just precise that state the expertise, because this is really important, but no names, because that's absolutely the opposite, because the beauty of the ERC grant is that you can select the best team members from all over the Europe or all over the world. So basically you start, or you are, it's expected that you will start to select the members of your team after you get the grant, so you should not know them all before.
We have two very similar questions related to the budget of ERC grants and the fact that they do not change or have not changed for since the establishment of the ERC. If you wish to comment on that.
Maybe that's because the budget didn't increase for the whole ERC. That means the increase this number of money would mean reducing the rate of success. So there's always a big play. So I mean, this actions just from 1 year to year, it's very difficult for the ERC.
But also there is no fixed portion of the budget for instruments. There is only this additional 1 million euro that you can ask for if you buy expensive instrument, but it doesn't say that it must be just this 1 million. So if you need more expensive, you can use 2 million euro, but then you will have like less money for the rest, right? So.
Another budget-related question: can an applicant ask for more money from the 1 million if she or he has more costs regarding, for example, personnel needed for the project?
No, there is 1 million, like it's considered, it should be enough. So there is 1.5 million for the starting grant, plus another 1 million if needed. 2 million for the consolidated and 2.5 for the advanced for 5 years. So you should really prepare.
I think that was not the question. The question is whether from this additional 1 million, whether they can pay only instrument or whether some personal costs and so on. But I also don't think so. Yeah.
Are researchers from the UK universities still eligible to apply?
Yes. Yes, but if they are selected, they have to move to European country or to the continental European Union country to do their research. So it's a bit tricky, but they are still eligible and they are still applying. As you could see in a lower number, but still applying and still eligible. This is not the case for Switzerland, but for UK it's still true.
I would just add that in case of synergy grants, for instance, a very often question is how to deal with, for instance, 2 UK PIs, and in that regard, because synergy grants do allow 1 PI like outside this eligible zone of EU member states and associated countries. So this is a tricky question and no one really wishes to say a clear answer. Perhaps the European or the representative of the European Union knows more, but we do not recommend it at this time very much because the proposal will be eligible. It might even be it can be put on the main list of those projects selected for funding, but if the association process is not finished, it will be ineligible in the end. So there are tricky aspects to assess, like whom to really include in the proposal. This is a long and complicated issue or process. If you have any further questions, like from the audience, you can raise your hand. Yes, we do have a question.
I think I've got 2 very specific questions. One was about the open access, which I think is sort of fine for most papers. But what do people do about books if they're sort of in humanities, and when you want to publish a book with an established publisher, I think it's sort of either very expensive or even impossible to get them to publish a thing as an open access book.
If you wish to comment on these issues, I will
every publication has to be in open access. That's the condition of ERC. So if you plan a book from your project, then please just just think about it before, check the prices and put it to your budget, because it will be 100, it's an eligible cost. But yeah, open access is a condition.
But how can we book open access? If it is a paper book? You give it for free on street, or
no?
I don't know.
I mean, I think some publishers will let you put a PDF on the internet, but it costs something like 10,000 euros to do that, and none of the established ones like Cambridge University Press do it. So that maybe if there's sort of people in humanities here, they might know more about what to do, but
no, there's going to be more and more pressure on this open access, so it should get easier and easier to be published like this, and it's absolute condition for years for ERC, so this is not going to change.
If I can hold on to this, the second specific question was about the sort of what's the best way to incorporate or sort of talk about the collaborators if you've got an interdisciplinary grant, if you sort of want to say, I'm bringing in these people as an expertise in this other field that I'm sort of working in. I assume you have to fit that somewhere in the B1, and do you have sort of recommendations on how to do that, and do these people have to somehow confirm that they're doing it, like write a letter of support or anything like that?
Well, maybe I will comment on that. Well, if it is really interdisciplinary and you need some let's say external expertise that you don't have personally, then you certainly must have the collaborators. But like it's not a good idea to have like too many collaborations that like diminish your own input, right? So it should be still that your let's say share is central for the proposal, and like you should have some auxiliary collaborations. It should not be like equal collaboration with many other labs. So like your leadership should be like evident from it.
Maybe one more thing. If it is a proposal that would fit to synergy, if it's that strongly kind of based on collaboration, please consider synergy.
I will just briefly ask two more questions that we received during the registration. And the first one was concerning ethical aspects of ERC projects. How do you address that during the evaluation or after, let's say, during the grant agreement preparation process?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. That's true that I completely forgot to mention this, that ethical aspect is very important for ERC, but it's not evaluated during this process that we just commented here, and it's done after. So for all the proposals that are selected, that are A's or that are on the reserve list, there is a so-called ethical screening. So the ethical, something like there is a panel meeting or panel for the scientific part of the proposal. So there are similar panels for the ethical aspects of the proposals. So first there is this screening, and this screening will tell if there could be any issue with ethics, and if this shows that it should be further investigated, then there is another meeting, and there are professionals in ethics, at least 3-4 people, but usually much more, which are evaluating these aspects. Then they will come back to you as a principal investigator, and you should reply to their questions or take measures that are needed, and then either you are cleared and you can continue with your project, or there will be other measures. So there is another ethical evaluation. So it should not be part of this evaluation, because this step 2 and step 1 and step 2 that we are commenting, we are describing here, is only about science. But then there is an ethical evaluation, which is completely separated from this mentioned here.
Thank you for this explanation. And the last question before the break, maybe I can answer that, and you can follow. Is concerning gender aspects. So as far as I know, this concerns only the host institution, which is supposed to have the gender equality plan in place when the grant agreement is signed, and that's it. If you have any other comments on that, because in some, let's say, people very frequently ask, that, for instance, in MSCA projects, gender aspects should really be considered even during the, let's say, within the content of the project. So I just wanted to make it clear to everyone that ERC is very different and it is solely tied to the host institution, and that's it.
Well, the gender aspect is not a criterion. It's not in any sense evaluated, and it should not be. It should not be even mentioned because, for example, we really preferred if the PIs are mentioned as they. It's not obvious from the evaluation who is the PI, and it's not a criterion. And you can see that we are doing quite well in this, and some panels have even higher number of women that were successful. So for ERC, this is not like a question or an issue, but yeah, that's it. We don't because there were some questions if there will be, for example, a different call for women only or something like that. But this is not the way we want to. This is not the way we want to proceed.
No, but if I can, so you are right that there is only condition that this institution should sign this gender. I don't know, some
gender.
Yeah.
Most of them already have it. So.
Yeah.
I just like to add one bit more positive thing than these statistics that were put here. I'm very glad to say that the number of women that are getting ERC grants here for being I would say, realized in the Czech Republic is increasing. And it's based definitely on the quality of the grants. And I'm very pleased for that. And this will be confirmed this year, I guess, again. And very profoundly, I'm very, very glad for that.
Thank all of you for your contributions, and we will have a short break of 15 minutes, and then we will have very interesting discussion with PIs and representatives of 2 Czech universities about how to support our success rate in ERC calls. So see you in 15 minutes.